This video contains an exercise where I have 3 sets of code here, so 3 cells of code, and there is an error in each one of these sets. So what you have to do is figure out what is the mistake in each one of these sets of code, and then do something to fix it, make it better somehow, make sure that it's going to work. Now, I encourage you to look at the code first and see if you can figure out what is the problem before you actually run the code. So see if you can figure out what is the error in each of these 3 sets, and not just go through line by line and run them and wait to see what the error message happens to be. So try to engage a bit of a proactive strategy for looking at code and figuring out what the error is. Okay, so if you haven't already, then now is your chance to pause the video and work through this set. So now I'm going to go through all of these 3 exercises. So this line here, plot random numbers, this part is fine. In fact, we've seen basically this exact same line of code several times. Now, you might initially think that this is the problem here. You might think that this is wrong because we need to use parentheses and single quotes here, like what you see here. Now, it turns out that actually this is fine. If you just have a simple text label, you're not using any variables or integrating any numbers with strings or anything like that, then in fact this method will work and it will give you the expected outcome. So it turns out that the error is on this line. And the error is that we've just mistyped, well, it's actually I have mistyped this function name, labely. It's actually label. And it's also interesting to know that when you run this line, Matlab first gives you this helpful error message. It says unrecognized function or variable. And then it says, did you mean this? Why label? So in fact, that is what we meant. We meant to say, why label? So that figures out that part of the problem. Okay, so let's go here. Now you might think that plotting just the value 3 is not terribly interesting, and it turns out that it's not. It's not a really useful way to visualize data. In fact, it looks like the plot is empty, but it's really not. There is a tiny little dot that's right here. So x-axis location of 1 and the y-axis location of 3, there's a tiny dot right here. So, and here in this second line of code, we are setting the y-axis limit to go from -1 to 4. Now, this seems like it should be correct, right? We have xlim in single quotes, that's spelled correctly, and we have 2 numbers here, and the first number is lower, is to the left of the second number, which is larger. However, when you run this line, you see what we're missing, so the error message is invalid handle. And the problem here is we're not telling Matlab which x limit to change. So we don't have a handle to this particular axis. We haven't created one. We could do that in theory. You could say h equals plot, and then we could put an h in here like this. Although actually I think that also, yeah, okay, so in fact that also won't run because this is a handle to the plot object, and here we want to change the axis object. So my apologies there. But in fact what we want to do is change the get current axis, so GCA. And that will successfully, without any errors, I can run this again here so you can see that we don't get any error message down here. And this sets the y-axis of the current, or the y-axis limit of the current axis to go from -1 to +4. All right, so here we have the third code set. And what we do is create some data. This is a cube of data, 10 by 3 by 2. And then we want to plot the data here. So we get an error message. It says data cannot have more than 2 dimensions. No surprise, this is a 2-dimensional plot. Now here, there's really no obvious way to fix this because we don't really know what the intention was. We don't know what the right grouping is. So, we could do something like this. I'm going to say, let's say, draw this in figure 3 and hold on. And then I'm going to plot all, comma, 1. And let's make this with a solid line so I can run this. So now we get a solid line, but this isn't showing us all of the data. This is only showing us part of the data. So then what I'm going to do is say, actually I'll make this dash dash, and then set this to be 2. So now we can plot all 6 of these lines on top of each other. So we get the 10 by 3 from the first element in the third dimension, and then 10 by 3 in the second element of the third dimension. Now the thing is, I have no idea if this was the intention. So, this is successful in the sense that it doesn't produce any more errors, but it's not really clear that that's the right thing to do. Anyway, the point is more for you to see some examples of plotting code that is incorrect, that has errors in it, and for you to figure out what those errors are and some ways to fix them. I hope you enjoyed this video.